Have you ever wondered why some moments carry a certain charge, almost like the air itself is alive? This very moment is one of those. You didn't stumble onto this message by accident. It may feel like coincidence, but it's actually alignment. Your presence here is not random. It's a response to a quiet call from a deeper part of your consciousness. That call is saying, you're ready, ready to receive, ready to shift. And what you're about to hear is not just information. It's an invitation into transformation. You see, change rarely begins with thunder or lightning. It often starts with the softest shift, like a curtain being pulled open, just enough to let the first ray of morning light touch your face. Right now, something within you is stirring, almost imperceptibly. Perhaps your breath is slowing down. Maybe your heart feels just a little heavier or lighter. The truth is, your entire system is responding to this encounter. And that's no accident. It's as though your soul has been waiting for this exact frequency to arrive so it can awaken a new dimension of your being. We often think transformation has to come from big decisions or bold actions. But science tells us, and ancient wisdom agrees, that the real turning point begins with awareness, a tiny adjustment in how you see yourself and the world around you. Like the way a single pebble dropped into still water sends ripples across the whole surface. One subtle shift in awareness can reshape your entire reality. The fact that you're still here, listening, already shows something powerful. You've chosen presence over distraction. And that single choice is already rewriting the blueprint of your life. Your heart, believe it or not, is speaking louder than your mind in this moment. Researchers have discovered that the electromagnetic field of the heart is 5,000 times stronger than that of the brain. Imagine that for a second. Every thought, every breath, every pulse is broadcasting into the field around you. When your heart resonates with truth, when it vibrates with coherence, it sends out a signal into the quantum field. That signal doesn't just vanish, it rearranges circumstances, draws people into your life, and opens doors that logic alone could never have predicted. And yet, what usually stops us from stepping into this new reality is not the outside world. It's the voice inside our own head. You know the one. The critic that whispers, "You're not ready. You're not enough. It's too late." That voice feels so familiar, it tricks us into believing it's truth. But in reality, it's nothing more than an echo of old conditioning. Fears passed down, wounds accumulated. It's not your soul speaking. Your soul doesn't diminish you. It calls you forward. Every time you've had that flash of inspiration, that moment of clarity, when you suddenly knew what you wanted, you've already tasted your higher self. But within seconds, the voice of fear rushes back, draped in the disguise of reason. It says, "Be practical. Wait for the right time. Don't take risks." And so the door closes before you've even stepped through. But here's the simple truth. The right time is never out there waiting for you. It is always now. The doorway only ever opens in the present moment. Think about how rivers flow. They don't fight to move uphill. They follow their natural course, finding the path of least resistance. Awareness works the same way. When you allow yourself to stop forcing, to stop waiting for perfection, you begin to move with the current of life instead of against it. That's when synchronicities appear. That's when the right people call, the right opportunities emerge. The unexpected support arrives, not because of luck, but because your inner frequency has tuned itself to alignment. And yes, your body feels this too. Transformation isn't just mental or spiritual, it's physical. Your nervous system upgrades to hold higher states of consciousness. Maybe your sleep changes. Maybe you become more sensitive to energy around you. Maybe old emotions rise up unexpectedly. Don't mistake this for something being wrong. It's your system recalibrating, tuning itself into the vibration of who you're becoming. Like a violin string being tightened just enough to play in harmony. Your whole being is preparing to resonate with a higher song. This is where the practice of trust becomes essential. The ego wants control. It wants to map every step, to guarantee outcomes. But consciousness isn't about controlling every detail. It's about about opening your hand, and trusting that what flows in is exactly what you need. There is a divine timing to all of this. Just as seeds cannot bloom in winter, your manifestations come when your inner soil is ready to hold them. And right now, by choosing to listen, by choosing to stay, you are preparing that soil. It's important to remember, you are not broken. You are not lacking. You don't need to become something other than yourself. You already hold the spark. The work is not to add something new, but to peel away the layers that have hidden your brilliance. When you stop apologizing for your light, when you stop shrinking to make others comfortable, your energy begins to radiate in ways that transform not only you but everyone around you. So here's the invitation: breathe, soften, and step into the present moment. Not tomorrow, not someday when you feel more ready, because readiness is not an emotion, it's a decision. And in this very instant, you can decide to live from awareness rather than fear, from love rather than doubt. You were meant to hear this message at precisely this moment, not last week, not next month now, because now is all you ever truly have. And when you honor this moment, when you let yourself align with it fully, you connect to the field of infinite possibility. From here, every miracle, every transformation, every new chapter begins. So stay with me. Here, in this space of awareness, this is not coincidence. This is your turning point. 1. The energy of the heart and the frequency of vibration. Science has shown us something extraordinary. The electromagnetic field generated by the human heart is 5,000 times stronger than the field produced by the brain. Think about that for a moment. We often believe our power lies in our thoughts, in our ability to analyze, to calculate, to control outcomes with reason. Yet it is not the brain that radiates the strongest signal, it is the heart. The heart whispers in silence, what the mind cannot shout. When your heart changes rhythm, your entire energetic signature shifts. It is as if you are playing a new song in the unseen symphony of life, and the world around you, whether you realize it or not, begins to dance to that melody. This is why certain encounters feel destined, why someone you meet for the first time feels oddly familiar, why a message or a chance event arrives at the exact moment you need it most. These things are not accidents. They are responses to the broadcast of your heart. I remember a time when I thought my life was defined by effort, by pushing, striving, and controlling every detail. I wore myself down trying to think my way out of suffering. And yet, nothing seemed to change. It was only when I softened into my own heart, when I allowed myself to feel instead of forcing myself to think, that doors began to open. A conversation with a stranger shifted my direction. A small opportunity arrived in perfect timing. These moments weren't the result of strategy. They were the result of resonance. The heart speaks in the language of frequency. When it is coherent, when its rhythm is calm, open, and aligned, it sends out a powerful, ordered signal. That signal interacts with what quantum scientists call the field of infinite possibility. It attracts experiences, people, and circumstances that match its vibration. It's like tuning a radio station. If you want to hear music, you cannot stay on static. You must align with the frequency of the song. In the same way, when your heart resonates with love, gratitude, or peace, your outer life begins to reflect those qualities. But here's the part we often miss. The heart's energy doesn't only influence others, it reshapes us from within. When your heart finds coherence, your nervous system calms, your breath slows, your body enters a state of balance and healing. Decisions feel less like battles in the mind and more like natural movements of the soul. You no longer feel like a machine grinding toward goals. You feel like a river, flowing with grace, no longer fighting against the current. Think of the people you've met who carried a presence that felt magnetic. Maybe they didn't say much, but being near them calmed you, inspired you, or lifted you. That wasn't charisma in the shallow sense. It was coherence. Their heart field was organized, steady, and strong. You were simply responding to it. Just as a tuning fork begins to vibrate when another fork of the same pitch is struck nearby, you felt resonance. What this means is profound every day. You are broadcasting into the space around you. Whether you are aware of it or not, your heart is sending out a frequency. That frequency is shaped not by what you pretend to feel, but by what you genuinely allow yourself to feel. If you walk through life with unprocessed fear, anger, or resentment, that's the song you are playing. And the world, like an echo, will reflect it back to you. But when you choose to breathe, to soften, to let gratitude or love fill your chest, even if just for a few moments, you shift the station. You broadcast a new song, and life rearranges itself accordingly. This doesn't mean we must force ourselves to always be joyful. The heart doesn't need fakery. It needs honesty. Some days, the rhythm of your heart will carry sorrow or grief, and that's okay. The key is coherence, not perfection. To sit with your own pain, to breathe into it, to allow it without resistance, that too creates alignment. It is the resistance that scatters your energy, not the emotion itself. When you stop fighting your feelings and start allowing them to flow through the heart, even sadness becomes a vibration that can lead you toward healing. The heart is more than a pump. It is an instrument of connection. It bridges the inner world with the outer one. It allows your soul's frequency to meet the universal field, and in that meeting, reality bends, shifts, and reorganizes. That is why spiritual traditions across cultures have always pointed back to the heart, not the mind, not the will, but the heart. They knew, long before modern science confirmed it, that the heart is the true center of human power. So let me say this clearly. If you want your life to change, begin with the rhythm of your heart. Don't rush into action before you have tuned your own frequency. Sit quietly for a few minutes each day. Place your hand on your chest. Breathe slowly. Think of one thing, just one, that brings you genuine gratitude. Feel how your heart responds. Notice how your breath shifts, how your body softens. In those moments, you are doing more to transform your reality than through hours of anxious planning, because you are sending out a signal, and the universe is listening. Destined encounters are not written in stone. They are drawn to you by the song you sing in silence. That is why some people walk into your life and feel like home. Why a chance opportunity arrives. The moment you decide to let go, it is not chance. It is the magnetic resonance of your heart aligning with the vast intelligence of the field. I share this with you not as an idea, but as something I have lived. I have been in the shadows, lost in the noise of my own thoughts, believing I had to figure everything out. And yet, it was when I returned to the heart, when I allowed myself to feel, to breathe, to trust that life revealed its synchronicity. What looked like coincidences were in fact the natural consequences of coherence. So today, as you listen, let this truth sink in. You are not powerless. You are broadcasting every moment. Your heart is a beacon, stronger than any thought, louder than any word. And when you choose coherence, when you choose love, gratitude, or even honest presence with your pain, you shift your frequency, and that shift changes everything. 2. Facing fear and the inner voice. Inside each of us, there is a voice. It doesn't shout. It doesn't roar. It whispers softly, persistently, almost convincingly. It says things like, "You're not ready. You don't have what it takes. Maybe later. Maybe tomorrow." And because it speaks in your own tone, in the language you know best, it's easy to believe it. Many people carry this voice for years, even decades, never realizing it isn't their truth. That voice is not your soul. It is the echo of old experiences, the residue of past pain. It's the leftover sound of fear disguised as wisdom. Perhaps it was born when someone told you to be realistic, when a dream was laughed at, when you tried and failed and the sting of rejection carved itself into your memory. Over time, those moments weave together into a script, and before long, the script plays automatically in your mind, telling you what you cannot do, who you cannot become, and why you must wait. I know this voice well. There were years when it dictated nearly every choice I made. I would feel the spark of an idea, the pull of inspiration, and then, before I could even take a step, that voice arrived. What if you fail? What will people think? Who do you think you are to try this? And just like that, the spark dimmed, the door closed, and I convinced myself it wasn't the right time. Looking back, I see how much life I left untouched because I allowed fear's whisper to be louder than my soul's call. Here is the truth. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is movement in the presence of fear. It's taking the trembling step anyway. It's pressing send on the application, making the phone call, showing up, even as your hands shake. It's choosing not to wait for fear to disappear, because it won't. Fear isn't meant to vanish. It's meant to be walked with. Think of fear as a child tugging at your sleeve. It says, don't go too far. Don't take risks. Stay where it's safe. It believes it's protecting you. And in some ways, it is because fear is ancient, hardwired into your nervous system to keep you alive. But survival is not the same as living bare yes. If you only ever listen to fear, and you survive, but you don't expand. You keep breathing, but you don't grow. The inner voice that tells you to wait until you're ready is like a broken clock. It will never point to the perfect hour. Because readiness is not an emotion that arrives fully formed one day. It is a choice you make in the moment. You decide you are ready by stepping forward, not by waiting for a mystical sign that clears every doubt. In fact, most people who achieved great things, whether artists, leaders, or spiritual teachers, admit they were scared when they began. They didn't feel qualified. They didn't feel strong enough. But they chose anyway. When you see fear for what it truly is, an old echo, a protective but misguided friend, it loses its power to paralyze you. You stop identifying with it. Instead of thinking, this fear is me, you realize, this fear is something passing through me. And in that realization, space opens. A gap appears between the voice and your awareness. In that gap, you can choose differently. Let me give you an image. Imagine standing on a cliff edge overlooking a vast ocean. The wind is strong, and fear tells you, step back. It's dangerous. Your heart, however, feels the pull of the horizon. It says, jump, and wings will appear. Courage doesn't mean you silence the fear and pretend the cliff doesn't scare you. Courage means you feel the tremble in your knees. You hear the warning in your mind, and you step anyway because the call of your soul matters more than the whisper of your fear. When you begin to act in spite of fear, something remarkable happens. The voice inside doesn't vanish overnight, but it quiets. Each time you move, you prove to yourself that fear is not the authority. And slowly, you retrain your nervous system. You start to see fear not as a stop sign, but as a signal that you are expanding beyond the familiar. Fear shows up most strongly at the doorway of growth. If you can remember that, fear becomes less of an enemy and more of a compass. The path of awakening is not about eliminating fear. It is about relating to it differently. You don't push it away. You don't let it drive. And you don't build your house on its foundation. You acknowledge it. Thank it for trying to protect you. and then place your hand on your heart and say, I choose love. I choose growth. I choose to move anyway. For a long time, I thought bravery meant being fearless. Now I understand it means being tender enough to feel fear fully, but strong enough not to let it decide my life. This is what it means to walk through the dark valleys and come out the other side, not that the valleys disappear, but that you no longer mistake them for the whole landscape. You realize there are mountains waiting, rivers to cross, and horizons to see. So when the voice whispers again, as it surely will, remember, it is not prophecy. It is memory. It only knows your past, not your future. Your future is shaped by the steps you take now, not by the fears that echo behind you. And the moment you act, even trembling, you declare to yourself and to the universe, I am ready. Even if I don't feel ready, that declaration carries weight. It shifts your vibration. It tells the field around you that you are no longer hiding, no longer waiting. And the field responds. Opportunities arise. Synchronicities align. Doors appear. Not because fear vanished, but because you stopped letting it hold the keys to your life. Fear will always be a companion on the road of transformation, but it does not need to be the driver. Sit it gently in the back seat. Acknowledge its presence. Then keep your eyes on the horizon, hands on the wheel, and heart open to the journey ahead. 3. Synchronicity and quantum intuition. There comes a point on this journey when life itself begins to feel like it is whispering to you. You think of someone, and almost as if on cue, they reach out. You hold a quiet intention in your heart, and soon after, an opportunity arises that mirrors it perfectly. These moments are not accidents. They are what we call synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that seem to arrive out of nowhere, but carry with them the unmistakable sense of purpose. When your awareness deepens, you begin to see these synchronicities everywhere. They are not miracles in the sense of breaking natural law. They are the natural law, revealed. Just as gravity is unseen but always present, synchronicity is the field responding to your frequency. It is the echo of your inner state, reverberating outward into the fabric of reality. For much of my life, I dismissed such moments as chance. I thought, what a funny coincidence. But over time, as I walked through both struggle and awakening, I noticed a pattern. The more aligned I became within myself, the more life mirrored that alignment back to me. The phone call at just the right moment, the book that seemed to fall into my hands, the conversation that shifted my entire path, all of it began happening too often, too precisely, to be dismissed as random. I realized that synchronicity is life's way of saying, you are in tune, keep going. Quantum physics tells us that reality is not fixed. It exists as a field of infinite possibilities until it is observed, until it interacts with consciousness. That means you are not passively walking through a predetermined script. You are participating in a dance. Every thought, every emotion, every state of being is like a signal you send into the field. And the field, responsive and alive, sends back experiences that resonate with your signal. Synchronicity is simply the feedback loop becoming visible. Imagine tossing a pebble into a still pond. The ripples spread outward, touching the edges of the water. Eventually, those ripples return to where they began. That is synchronicity, the return of your own vibration, but translated into circumstances, encounters, and timing that guide you forward. When synchronicities begin to appear in your life, it is easy to become fascinated by the outer signs. Some people chase numbers on clocks, repeated patterns, or external symbols as if they themselves hold the power. But the real treasure is not the symbol. It is the alignment inside you that created the opening for it to arrive. The numbers on the clock, the chance meeting, the timely message, these are confirmations, not causes. They are like road signs telling you that you are on the right path. But the path itself is carved by your awareness, your intention, your state of being. This is where quantum intuition enters. Intuition, in the ordinary sense, is often just pattern recognition. Your brain notices something subtle and predicts what might happen next based on past experience. But quantum intuition is different. It doesn't arise from the past. It arises from the field of potential itself. It feels less like predicting and more like remembering, like receiving a message from your future self, who has already walked the road and is gently guiding you back toward alignment. You can cultivate this capacity, but it requires quiet. The field does not shout. It speaks in the language of subtlety through a sudden knowing, a quiet feeling in your chest, an image that flickers in your mind for no reason at all. Too often we dismiss these as imagination or wishful thinking, but if you learn to listen, you'll notice they carry a different quality. They arrive with clarity, with a sense of peace, even when they point you toward a direction your mind would not have chosen. I have lived this many times. There were moments when logic told me one thing, but the quiet nudge of intuition told me another. I remember once being drawn to reach out to someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My mind questioned it. Why bother? They may not even respond. But I followed the nudge. The conversation that unfolded became a doorway to opportunities I could never have orchestrated. That is the nature of quantum intuition. It aligns you with pathways that the rational mind cannot yet see. Think of it like tuning a radio. When your frequency is scattered, the signal is static, and intuition is drowned out by noise. But when you bring coherence through presence, through stillness, through aligning your heart and mind, you become the clear channel. You begin to hear the song that was always playing, waiting for you to tune in. Synchronicity and intuition are reminders that you are not navigating life alone. There is an intelligence woven into the very fabric of existence. Call it the quantum field. Call it universal mind. Call it divine presence. It doesn't matter the name. What matters is the experience of partnership. You take a step, and life responds. You set an intention, and doors open. You pause and listen, and guidance arrives. But there's a subtle discipline required here, not to grasp, not to demand, not to turn synchronicity into a vending machine for your desires. If you treat the universe as a tool to get what you want, you will miss the deeper point. The point is not to manipulate outcomes, but to become the kind of being who naturally aligns with what is true, what is good, what is meant for you. When you focus less on chasing signs and more on embodying the frequency of love, gratitude, and openness, synchronicities multiply, not because you are pulling strings, but because you are flowing with the current. Picture a river. When you thrash and fight against it, you tire yourself. You get stuck in eddies, and you miss the beauty on the banks. But when you surrender to its current, it carries you further, faster, with less effort than you could have managed alone. That is what synchronicity feels like, the river of life carrying you, while intuition is the quiet knowing of when to paddle, when to steer, and when to simply let go. So when the coincidences begin to pile up, when the timing feels too perfect to ignore, take a deep breath. Recognize it for what it is, a reflection of your own consciousness, speaking back to you. Smile at it, thank it, and most of all, trust it, because it means you are not lost. You are connected. You are being guided by a wisdom larger than yourself, yet deeply within yourself. For you are already whole right now. One of the greatest illusions we carry is the sense of lack. From a young age, we are taught to measure ourselves against others, to believe that happiness waits on the other side of achievement, of money, of recognition, of someone else's love. And so we spend our lives reaching, striving, comparing. We wake each morning with the quiet ache that something is missing. But here is the truth. As simple as it is radical, nothing is missing. You are already whole. You are not a puzzle waiting for a final piece. Not a broken vessel waiting to be glued together. Everything you long for is already within you, quietly resting at the core of your being. The work is not about adding baskets, but about uncovering, not about becoming more, but about remembering what has always been there. I know what it is to feel empty. There were years when I looked at my life and thought, if only I had more money, I could finally relax. If only I had someone to love me, I would finally feel complete. If only I had more confidence, I could finally pursue my dreams. These thoughts seemed so real, so convincing, that I believed them completely. But each time I reached the milestone I thought would save me, the feeling of lack returned in a new form. It was like chasing the horizon. The closer I thought I was, the further it seemed to move away. Then came the moment when I realized the horizon doesn't move. It is me, always running towards something outside myself, believing the answer was there. The lack was never out in the world. It was in the lens through which I was seeing myself. Think of a seed. Within that tiny seed lies the entire blueprint of the tree. The roots, the trunk, the branches, the fruit, all of it is already encoded inside. The tree doesn't chase after something outside itself to become whole. It simply grows into what it already is. You are the same. The wholeness of your life, the beauty of your unfolding, is already written within you. You don't have to chase completion. You only need to allow your own growth. But we forget this truth. We get lost in stories that tell us we are not enough. Advertisements whisper that we need one more product to be worthy. Culture teaches us to compare ourselves endlessly. Family and society plant expectations. And when we don't meet them, we feel like failures. These stories bury our inherent wholeness under layers of doubt and shame. And yet, no matter how deep the burial, the seed remains. Your completeness never leaves you. When you start to live from this awareness that nothing is missing, you begin to see life differently. Challenges don't mean you are broken. They are invitations to discover strength you didn't know you had. Loneliness doesn't mean you are unlovable. It is a reminder to connect first with your own heart. Fear doesn't mean you are weak. It is proof that you are standing on the threshold of growth. Wholeness is not about never feeling pain. It is about knowing that pain, too, belongs. That sorrow can live alongside joy. That weakness can exist alongside strength. And still, you are complete. You don't need to exile the parts of yourself that hurt in order to be whole. You need only to embrace them, to welcome them back into the circle of your being. For so long, I thought my insecurities disqualified me from being whole. I thought I had to fix myself before I could step into love, or purpose, or peace. But the truth is, wholeness does not come after the fixing. It comes from realizing you were never broken. The cracks in you are not evidence of failure. They are places where light can enter, where compassion can grow. Try this simple practice the next time you hear that inner voice say, I am not enough. Pause. Place your hand on your chest. Breathe gently, and answer with another voice. The one that speaks from deeper within. I am already whole. I am already enough. At first it may feel untrue, like words you're forcing yourself to believe. But if you keep returning to them, something begins to shift. Slowly, you start to see the truth they carry. You begin to notice moments when life confirms it back to you in a smile, in a quiet joy, in a synchronicity that reassures you. The moment you stop chasing wholeness outside yourself, you become free. You no longer live waiting for the next achievement or the next relationship to save you. You stop postponing your peace. You start living from it. And when you do, life around you responds. Relationships become deeper because you are not approaching them from need but from fullness. Work becomes more meaningful because it is no longer a desperate attempt to prove your worth. Even the simplest experiences, a walk, a meal, a conversation, become rich because you are finally meeting them as someone complete. It's like discovering that the treasure you've been searching for your whole life has been hidden in your pocket the entire time. You laugh at the chase, and then you cry with relief, because all along, the search was only leading you back to yourself. So hear this clearly: you are not waiting to become whole. You already are. Your value is not measured by your bank account, by the reflection in the mirror, or by the approval of others. It is woven into the fact that you exist, that you breathe, that you are here. Let this truth soften you. Let it wash away the endless striving, the constant measuring placed. Let it remind you that right now, without changing a single thing, you are enough. And from that place of enoughness, growth becomes natural. Transformation becomes joyful. Life unfolds with grace. 5. The power of small actions. There is a truth we often overlook. Knowledge without action is just entertainment. You can read all the books, watch all the videos, and fill your mind with inspiring words, but unless they translate into movement, they remain as echoes. Transformation is not found in concepts alone. It lives in the steps you take, however small. I used to believe I had to prepare endlessly before I was ready to move. I thought if I planned well enough, if I gathered enough courage, if I waited until the stars aligned, then my first step would be flawless. But life kept teaching me that waiting for perfection is simply another form of fear. Momentum doesn't come from certainty. It comes from choosing to act in the middle of uncertainty. A single step, even a trembling one, carries more power than 1,000 intentions left unexpressed. Think of planting a seed. You can imagine the garden. You can dream about the flowers. But nothing will bloom until the seed touches soil. In the same way, your dreams remain only dreams until you place them in the ground of reality through action. Small actions matter. In fact, they often matter more than grand gestures. Because small actions accumulate, they build momentum. They are doable, even on days when your courage feels thin. One quiet choice after another creates a rhythm, and that rhythm begins to shape your life. I remember a time when I felt paralyzed by the scale of change I desired. The distance between where I was and where I longed to be felt like a canyon too wide to cross. But then I learned to take it one small step at a time, writing a single page instead of trying to finish a book, choosing to walk outside instead of committing to an impossible exercise routine, saying one kind word instead of trying to transform a whole relationship overnight. Each action was small, almost insignificant on its own. But over weeks and months, I realized something had shifted. I was no longer standing still. I was moving. And movement creates its own energy. The universe does not respond to perfection. It responds to momentum. Just as a river doesn't wait until it is certain of its destination before it flows, you don't need certainty before you begin. Flow creates the path, and the beauty of small actions is that they bypass the paralysis of overthinking. They remind you that progress is not about leaping across the canyon in one bound, but about placing one foot in front of the other. Even science affirms this. Studies show that people who act with 70% certainty consistently outperform those who wait for 90% certainty. Why? Because while the perfectionist is still preparing, the imperfect mover has already created momentum. Opportunities open for those in motion, not for those still hesitating at the edge. Think of it like riding a bicycle. At first, it feels awkward, wobbly, frightening. But the moment you push the pedals, balance becomes easier. The act of moving stabilizes you. Life is the same. Confidence does not precede action. It follows it. Each small choice builds trust in yourself. Each movement teaches your nervous system, I can survive this. I can grow through this. Here's something I've learned in my own journey. When you take even the smallest action, it is like making a declaration to the universe. You are saying, I am ready. I may not have it all figured out, but I am willing. And that willingness is magnetic. Doors open, not because you forced them, but because your action shifted your frequency. It told the field around you that you are participating, not just dreaming. I used to wait for motivation to strike like lightning before I acted. But motivation rarely comes first. Action itself generates motivation. Just as fire begins with a single spark, momentum begins with a single step. Waiting to feel ready keeps you stuck in thought. Moving, even imperfectly, wakes something alive inside you. There's a tenderness in this truth. You don't need to climb the whole mountain today. You only need to take the next step. And tomorrow, the next. Before long, you look back and realize the mountain is behind you. What once felt impossible was built from 1,000 small choices, each one carrying the weight of courage. So if you are listening to this and thinking, "But my steps are too small to matter," let me assure you they matter. The smallest ripple in water can travel farther than you can see. A single word of kindness can alter someone's entire day. A single brave choice can change the trajectory of your life. Don't underestimate the quiet power of consistency. I know what it is to feel overwhelmed by the distance ahead. I know what it is to freeze under the weight of expectations. But I also know the relief that comes when you stop waiting for the perfect moment and simply begin. The heaviness lifts, not because the road is shorter, but because you are no longer standing still. Every small action is sacred. It is a conversation between you and life itself. Each time you move, you affirm that you trust the unfolding, that you are willing to meet the unknown with open hands, and life, in turn, meets you with opportunities, synchronicities, and support you could never have planned. So let today be the day of small beginnings. Write the first sentence, make the phone call, step outside, breathe deeply, smile at a stranger. These may seem ordinary, but they are gateways. They are declarations. They are the building blocks of a life transformed. Remember, this perfection will not change your life. Preparation will not carry you across the threshold. Only action will. And the smallest step, taken in faith, carries more power than waiting a lifetime for certainty. 6. The harmony of individual and collective awakening. There is a quiet truth that is easy to forget. Your inner choices do not belong only to you. Each time you choose love over fear, patience over anger, compassion over judgment, you are not just transforming your own life. You are adding your voice to a larger chorus, the collective song of humanity. Your private victories of the heart ripple outward in ways you may never see, lifting the field of awareness we all share. When I was younger, I thought my healing, my awakening, was a solitary affair. I imagined it as something personal, hidden away, something I did only for myself. But over time, I noticed something subtle. Each time I softened instead of hardened, each time I forgave instead of clung to bitterness, the world around me shifted too. Conversations became lighter. Strangers seemed more open. The people closest to me began to feel safer, calmer, more willing to open their own hearts. My inner work was not just mine, it was medicine for others too. Science now supports what mystics have always known. The electromagnetic field of the heart extends several feet beyond the body. When your heart is coherent, its rhythm ordered and calm, you are broadcasting a signal that others can sense. People may not consciously notice it, but they feel it. Just as you have felt drawn to certain individuals who carried a rare peace about them, others feel that way about you when you live in alignment. In this sense, awakening is not a solitary light flickering in the dark. It is a torch that ignites other torches. Think of a tuning fork. Strike one, and another nearby begins to vibrate at the same frequency. Human beings are the same. When you choose presence, others nearby are invited without words to settle into presence too. When you embody kindness, you give permission for kindness to awaken in someone else. This is how collective change begins. not with loud declarations, but with quiet resonance. I remember a particular evening when this truth became undeniable to me. I was sitting with a friend who was drowning in grief. My instinct was to offer words, advice, solutions, but something inside told me to be still, to simply breathe and open my heart. So I sat quietly, hand resting on theirs, and let my own presence do the speaking. Minutes passed in silence, but slowly their shoulders softened. Their tears shifted from despair to release. Later, they told me, "It wasn't what you said, it was how you were." That night, I understood the state of our being is often more powerful than the content of our words. And this is why your awakening matters. Not because it makes you appear enlightened, not because it gives you spiritual status, but because it shifts the invisible atmosphere around you. It contributes to the field that all of us breathe, live, and move within. Each choice you make in your inner world is a vote for the world we will share together. We are living in a time when fear is loud. The collective field is filled with division, anxiety, and uncertainty. It is easy to feel powerless against such tides. But remember, fear spreads quickly. Yes, but so does love. A single act of kindness can travel farther than you can imagine. A moment of presence in one person can calm the storm in many too. History is filled with evidence that one heart aligned with truth can alter the course of communities, even nations. When you understand this, your personal practice no longer feels selfish. Sitting in meditation, breathing with awareness, choosing forgiveness. It may look like you are doing nothing, but in reality, you are tending to the collective field. You are strengthening the invisible threads that bind us all. Every time you heal an old wound within yourself, you make it easier for others to heal theirs. Every time you embody courage, you inspire it in someone who may be watching silently. It is a beautiful paradox. The more deeply you turn inward, the more profoundly you affect the outward world. True collective awakening doesn't happen by forcing others to change. It happens by becoming the change yourself. When enough individuals shift, the collective field tips. New ways of living, of relating, of creating, suddenly become possible. Think of humanity as a vast body. Each person is like a cell within it. When one cell begins to heal, its health benefits the whole system. In the same way, when your consciousness awakens, you help to restore the health of the human family. It may not feel grand in the moment, but it is profound. I want to tell you something that took me years to believe. Your small acts of awareness matter more than you think. Choosing to breathe before you react, choosing to listen instead of argue, choosing to soften instead of harden. These are not trivial choices. They are sacred. They are the building blocks of a new world. And perhaps the most humbling part is this: you will never fully know how far your influence travels. You will never see all the people touched by your energy, all the hearts softened by your example. You will never count the ripples created by your single act of presence. But you don't need to. It is enough to trust that they exist. Just as waves keep traveling long after the stone has disappeared beneath the water, so let us release the illusion that awakening is a lonely journey. Your healing is my healing. My healing is yours. We are threads, woven into the same tapestry. And when one thread shines brighter, the whole pattern becomes more radiant. Every time you choose love instead of fear, you are not just liberating yourself, you are serving humanity. You are helping to shift the collective story from one of separation to one of connection. And in this way, your inner work is the most powerful gift you could ever give the world. 7. The layers of transformation. Transformation is not a single event. It does not happen in one flash of light, nor in a single night of inspiration. True awakening moves through layers, like the unfolding of petals, or the rising of dawn, where the sky shifts shade by shade. There are 3 essential layers to this process: recognition, disruption, and integration. Each one has its own challenges, its own beauty, its own medicine. The first layer is recognition. This is when you begin to notice the patterns that have silently shaped your life. Maybe it's the way fear has always whispered in your decisions. Maybe it's the constant loop of self-doubt, the habits of numbing, the reflex to compare yourself to others. In recognition, you finally see these patterns not as who you are, but as stories you've carried. And that moment of seeing is powerful. It is like turning on the light in a room you've lived in for years but never truly noticed. The furniture was always there. The walls always stood around you. But now, illuminated, you realize the shape of the space you've been inhabiting. Recognition is not always comfortable. At first, it can sting to see your old wounds clearly. To admit the ways you've limited yourself can feel like failure, but it isn't failure. It is the beginning of freedom, because once you see a pattern, it no longer has the same power over you. Awareness itself loosens its grip. And then comes the second layer, disruption. This is where many people stumble, because disruption feels like chaos. When old systems collapse, when beliefs that once felt solid start to crumble, it can feel as though the ground is disappearing beneath your feet. Emotions rise that you thought you had buried. Doubts resurface. Your relationships may shift. Your desire may change. And your sense of identity begins to unravel. This stage can be frightening. It feels like standing in the ruins of what you once called home. And yet, it is the very proof that transformation is real. A seed cannot grow without breaking its shell. A caterpillar cannot become a butterfly without dissolving into formlessness in the cocoon. Disruption is not evidence that something has gone wrong. It is evidence that something is finally breaking open. I remember walking through my own season of disruption. Nothing felt steady. What once gave me comfort no longer satisfied me. The practices, the relationships, the ambitions that used to feel like anchors suddenly felt like cages. At times, I thought I was falling apart. But slowly, I came to see that I wasn't falling apart. I was falling open. The dismantling was not punishment. It was preparation. If you are in this stage now, let me tell you, you are not broken. You are breaking through. The discomfort you feel is not the end of the road, but the clearing of a path. Hold yourself gently here. Don't rush to rebuild too quickly. Let the old dissolve. Even if it feels like loss, trust that beneath the falling pieces, the foundation of something truer is being revealed. And then, quietly, comes the third layer, integration. This is when the dust begins to settle, when the fragments of the old self give way to something new, something more whole. Integration is not about forcing yourself to change. It is about embodying the change that has already taken root within you. In integration, the practices that once took effort begin to feel natural. Gratitude no longer needs to be written down on a list. It flows from you without prompting. Choosing presence no longer requires constant reminders. It becomes your default way of meeting the world. The insights you once struggled to hold on to are no longer ideas in your mind. They are embodied in your breath, your choices, your relationships. This is the stage where transformation becomes effortless. Like breathing, it doesn't mean life is free from challenges, but it does mean you meet those challenges differently. You no longer collapse under them. You no longer define yourself by them. Instead, you recognize them as waves in the ocean of awareness, rising and falling, while you remain anchored in something deeper. Integration is perhaps the most beautiful of the layers, because it reveals what was always possible, living from your wholeness rather than chasing it, moving with the flow of life rather than against it. And yet, it is not the final step, because transformation is never truly finished. The cycle repeats. New patterns come into recognition. New disruptions rise. New integrations form. Like the seasons, the layers return again and again. each time carrying you deeper into your true nature. If you are walking through recognition, honor your courage for seeing clearly. If you are walking through disruption, hold yourself tenderly as the old falls away. If you are entering integration, give thanks for the ease that begins to flow. Each stage is sacred, each layer is necessary, and none of them are meant to be skipped. The simplicity of this truth is liberating. You don't have to force yourself to grow. You don't have to manufacture transformation. It is already happening, as naturally as the tide, as steadily as the sunrise. Your task is not to control it, but to allow it, to breathe through the recognition, to trust through the disruption, to soften into the integration. One day, you will look back and realize that what once felt unbearable was, in fact, the doorway into your freedom. That the collapse was not the end but the beginning. That the self you thought was shattering was only the shell cracking open to release the life waiting inside. So wherever you are in these layers today, remember this too belongs. This too is part of the unfolding. The path of awakening is not about bypassing discomfort. It is about walking through it with awareness, knowing that each step recognition, disruption, integration is guiding you home to yourself. 8. The meaning of present choices. Every moment of your life, you stand at a crossroad. It may not look like it from the outside. You might be sitting at your kitchen table, driving to work, or lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling. But in truth, life keeps placing you at these subtle intersections, asking, will you choose courage? Or will you choose delay? Will you take one small step forward? Or will you wait for the so-called perfect time that never arrives? The mind loves the illusion of perfect timing. It whispers, not yet. Tomorrow will be better. When you have more money, more energy, more clarity, then you can start. But here's the reality. Tomorrow is only another version of now. It never brings the certainty you are waiting for. It never delivers the flawless conditions you imagine. Because the only moment that is alive, the only canvas on which you can paint your transformation is this one. Think of it like standing on the edge of a river. You could wait for the current to slow down, for the water to clear, for the perfect bridge to appear. But life does not wait for your conditions. The river keeps flowing. The opportunity to step in is always here. Not someday, and sometimes, the act of stepping into the water is what teaches you how to swim. I know what it feels like to wait. I spent years postponing my own growth, telling myself I wasn't ready. I thought I needed to heal more, to prepare more, to study more before I could finally begin. But life kept showing me the same truth. Readiness does not arrive before the step. Readiness is created by the step. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to move while your hands still tremble and your heart still pounds. Every present choice is like planting a seed in the soil of the universe. At first, it may feel invisible, insignificant, but the seed knows what to do. It does not wait for better weather or richer ground. It begins its quiet work in the darkness, sending roots downward, reaching toward the light. And so do you. Every act of courage, however small, is a root that anchors you more deeply into your truth. Choosing in the present moment does not mean you need to make grand dramatic moves. Sometimes, the most powerful choice is the smallest one. Choosing to pause and breathe, instead of reacting in anger. Choosing to speak one honest sentence instead of hiding behind silence. Choosing to rest instead of running yourself to exhaustion. Choosing to say yes to an opportunity, even while doubt still lingers in your chest. Do not underestimate the power of these small choices. They are not isolated actions. They ripple out. Each one shifts your frequency. And as your vibration changes, the reality around you reorganizes itself to match. The universe does not respond to what you intend to do later. It responds to who you are being right now. And here's the most beautiful part. Each choice in the present moment is a doorway to a new timeline. Think of it like adjusting the dial on an old radio. With a tiny shift, the static disappears, and the music comes through. Your present choices are those shifts. One moment of courage, one decision to trust instead of doubt, can tune you into a completely different frequency of life. But what about the fear that comes with making choices? The truth is, fear will always walk beside you. It is part of the human experience. Waiting for fear to vanish before you act is like waiting for the ocean to stop moving before you swim. The waves will always be there, but your relationship with them can change. The more you choose in the presence of fear, the more you realize that fear has no real teeth. It was only ever a shadow on the wall, not a monster in the room. Let me tell you this, you are not behind. You have not missed your chance. The present moment always offers you a new beginning, no matter how many times you've delayed. Life is infinitely forgiving. With each breath, it gives you another chance to choose again. That is the miracle of now. So the question is not, when will I be ready? The question is, what am I choosing in this moment? Are you choosing to stay hidden, or are you choosing to let yourself be seen? Are you choosing to rehearse your limitations, or are you choosing to live as if your wholeness is already here? Are you choosing to carry yesterday's weight, or are you choosing to step lightly into the freedom of today? The meaning of present choices is simple but profound. They are not just about today. They shape the trajectory of your life. They sculpt who you become. They are the brush strokes painting the masterpiece of your destiny. And every single one of them, no matter how small, matters. So perhaps you ask yourself right now, what is life inviting me to choose? Maybe it's courage. Maybe it's forgiveness. Maybe it's trust. Maybe it's finally allowing yourself to begin that thing you've been postponing for years. Whatever it is, the invitation has arrived in this moment. And if you're wondering whether you are ready, let me remind you gently, the very fact that you're asking, the very fact that you're watching, listening, breathing into this space right now, is proof that you are. Otherwise, this moment would not be here. The present is not a waiting room. It is the birthplace of transformation. And when you honor that truth, when you choose from this place, you realize that someday has always been today. 9. The body also transforms with consciousness. When your awareness rises, it is not just your thoughts and emotions that shift. Your body, this vessel of flesh and breath, begins its own transformation. Consciousness is not some abstract cloud floating above your head. It lives within your cells, your heartbeat, your nervous system, and so, when your inner world expands, the body must adapt to hold this new frequency. Many people are surprised when their spiritual awakening is accompanied by very physical experiences. Perhaps your sleep patterns change. You find yourself waking in the middle of the night, your mind alive, with energy, or you sleep more deeply than ever before. You may notice sudden waves of emotion, tears rising without any clear reason, laughter spilling out of you at the smallest spark. Some people even feel heightened sensitivity. Certain foods no longer resonate. Crowded places feel overwhelming. Or you sense the emotions of others more strongly than before. These changes are not signs of something wrong. They are proof that your nervous system is upgrading, learning to carry more light, more awareness, more life force energy. Just as the muscles of your body grow stronger when you train them, your inner circuitry is being rewired to align with the frequency of your expanded consciousness. Think of it like tuning an instrument. If you have ever played a guitar or a piano, you know that when the strings are tightened to a new pitch, they resist at first. They stretch, they groan, they feel unstable. But after some time, the new note becomes natural, and the music flows more beautifully than before. Your body is much the same. It is being tuned to carry the song of your soul more clearly. At times, This tuning process may feel uncomfortable. You might experience pressure in your head, tingling sensations through your skin, or sudden bursts of fatigue. You might wonder, what's happening to me? Am I falling apart? The truth is, you are not falling apart. You are falling open. The discomfort is not a breakdown. It is a breakthrough. Your body has wisdom beyond the mind's understanding. Every cell is a library of memory, carrying not only your personal story, but echoes of your ancestors, your culture, even the collective human journey. When consciousness expands, it shines light into these stored memories. Old traumas may surface. Old patterns may tremble, asking to be released. This is not punishment. It is liberation. The body is gently emptying what no longer serves, making space for the new. And so, rather than resisting these sensations, learn to listen. Rest when you need rest. Drink water when your body calls for it. Move gently. Stretch. Breathe. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is take a nap. Sometimes the most sacred ritual is walking barefoot on the earth, letting her energy soothe your nervous system. There is a tenderness to this process. Like a snake shedding its skin, the old layers peel away, not because you force them to, but because life insists on your renewal. The body is loyal. It will follow the consciousness wherever it goes. And as you rise, it rises with you. You may find that your body starts to crave different things. Foods that once gave you comfort may now feel heavy, while simple fruits, vegetables, or pure water taste alive in ways they never did before. You may feel called to spend more time in silence, or to move your body through dance, yoga, or gentle walks, as if the body itself wants to celebrate this new rhythm. Honor these impulses. They are the body's way of aligning with the soul's expansion. Some people call these experiences ascension symptoms, but I prefer to think of them as invitations. Sensation. Each shift is an invitation to trust the wisdom of your body. It is not betraying you. It is accompanying you on the journey of awakening. And here's the deeper truth. Your body is not separate from your consciousness. It is consciousness, slowed down into form. Matter is not the opposite of spirit. It is spirit made visible. This body is the temple where the infinite chose to reside, so that you could touch, taste, breathe, and live the mystery of existence in physical form. When you understand this, you stop fighting your body. You stop blaming it for being tired, for being sensitive, for reacting in unexpected ways. Instead, you begin to thank it. You begin to treat it as a companion, a sacred partner, carrying you through the rivers and deserts of awakening. So if you are experiencing changes, whether in sleep, emotions, energy, or physical sensations, let them remind you of this. You are evolving. Your system is expanding its capacity to hold truth, love, and awareness. The discomforts are not setbacks. They are signs of growth. And just as the caterpillar must dissolve into liquid before it becomes a butterfly, you too may feel like you are dissolving. But trust this: what emerges will be stronger, lighter, freer than before. Your body is not resisting your awakening. It is becoming the bridge that allows your soul to fully live on earth. 10. The ego and the surrender of control. Perhaps the most difficult part of awakening is this letting go of control. The ego has been trained over a lifetime to grip tightly, to manage every outcome, to script the story in advance. It whispers, if I can plan everything, nothing will hurt me. If I can predict the path, I'll be safe. But awakening is not about tightening the grip. It is about loosening it. It is about opening the hand and trusting that what life places there, even if it looks uncertain at first, belongs to you in some greater design. The ego, by its nature, fears the unknown. It equates unpredictability with danger. And yet, The soul knows that the unknown is not an enemy. It is the very place where miracles happen. The mind builds walls to keep you safe. But those walls also block the winds of possibility. When you dare to open a window, to let life blow through without trying to direct every gust, you discover that safety was never in control. It was in trust. Think of a river again. The ego is like a person trying to paddle upstream, fighting the current with all their strength, believing that only by resisting can they survive. But the awakened state is more like lying back, letting the water carry you, trusting that the river knows where it is going. The irony is, when you stop resisting, you do not drown, you float. I know the temptation to control. For years, I thought if I just worked harder, thought faster, and planned better, I could bend life into obedience. And for a while, it seemed to work. But beneath the surface, I was exhausted, restless, constantly afraid of losing what I thought I had secured. It wasn't until I began to soften, until I allowed myself to not have all the answers, that something deeper began to unfold. Life, in its mysterious wisdom, started arranging things far more beautifully than I ever could have forced. The ego clings to certainty. The awakened heart rests in curiosity. One is like staring at a closed door, demanding it open. The other is like stepping into a hallway and discovering doors you never even knew existed. The moment you release the need to control how the story unfolds, the universe begins to write chapters that take your breath away. And surrender does not mean passivity. It does not mean giving up your power or abandoning your choices. It means aligning your choices with trust rather than fear. It means listening for the quiet pull of intuition instead of chasing the loud demands of insecurity. It means acting with clarity, then releasing the outcome, knowing that once the arrow leaves the bow, the wind may carry it in ways you never expected. In truth, control was always an illusion. None of us can predict every twist of life. Storms come, seasons change, people arrive and leave. The tighter we try to hold, the more life slips through our fingers. But when we unclench, when we surrender, we find ourselves held by something far larger than our plans. Your ego might protest, if I don't control, what will happen to me? Who will protect me? And the answer is simple, though not always easy to accept. Life itself will. The same intelligence that grows forests and orchestrates galaxies is the same intelligence beating your heart right now. If it can handle the stars, it can handle your next step. This does not mean there will be no challenges. Life will still bring its waves. But when you surrender, you stop exhausting yourself by trying to order the ocean. Instead, you learn to surf. You discover balance not by fixing the waves, but by flowing with them. The gift of surrender is freedom. Freedom from the endless calculations, the restless nights, the inner battles against what is. Freedom to breathe, to live, to be carried. And in this freedom, your true self emerges. The self that is not small, not bound by fear, but vast, is spacious, at home in the mystery. So, the invitation is this. Loosen your grip. Notice where you are still trying to control, whether it's the pace of your growth, the reactions of others, or the timing of opportunities. See if you can soften your hold, even just a little. Whisper to yourself, I trust the current, I trust the unfolding, and watch what happens. Watch how doors open without you forcing them. Watch how synchronicities appear, how the right people, the right words, the right moments find their way to you. This is not coincidence, it is the natural rhythm of life, revealed when you step out of the way. When you stop controlling, you discover a truth that is both humbling and liberating. Life never needed your control to carry you. It only needed your willingness to be carried. 11. Trust in sacred timing. One of the deepest frustrations on the path of awakening is the impatience we feel when change doesn't arrive as quickly as we want. The ego says, "I've done the work. Where are the results? Why hasn't my life shifted yet?" But awakening is not a transaction. It is not a bargain you make with the universe where effort equals immediate reward. Awakening unfolds in its own rhythm, what I call sacred timing. Sacred timing is the understanding that life does not bend to the clock of your impatience, but to the larger harmony of the universe. Just as a seed takes time to push roots into the soil before it dares to rise toward the sun, your transformation requires seasons unseen by the human eye. You may not notice what is happening beneath the surface, but that does not mean nothing is happening. In fact, the most important work is often the work you cannot see. Think of the seed again. If you stood over the ground, demanding that it sprout tomorrow, you would only frustrate yourself. Worse, you might be tempted to dig it up to check its progress, disrupting the very process that would have brought it to life. The seed knows its timing. It trusts the soil, the rain, the warmth of the sun, and when the moment is right, it emerges not a second earlier, not a second later. The same is true of your awakening. You may look around and think others are moving faster, blossoming sooner, shining brighter. But comparing timelines is like comparing seasons. Spring does not rush to compete with summer. Autumn does not apologize for taking its time. Each arrives exactly when it must, and each brings its own unique beauty. Impatience comes from forgetting that you are already in process. You may think nothing is changing, but subtle shifts are already rewriting your inner world. Your nervous system is adjusting. Your perception is widening. Your vibration is recalibrating. These are not instant events. They are sacred gestations. To demand immediate results is like asking a child to be born fully grown. Life honors growth by giving it time. I know how hard it can be to trust this. There were seasons in my own journey when I begged for acceleration. I wanted the pain to end, the clarity to come, the freedom to arrive. But each time I only found more resistance. It wasn't until I softened into patience, into surrender, that things began to move in ways I could not have orchestrated. What I thought was delay was really preparation. What I thought was emptiness was the soil being enriched for the harvest. Sacred timing teaches us humility. It reminds us that we are not the master architects of the universe, but participants in a design vaster than we can see. It invites us to replace anxiety with trust, restlessness with presence. The truth is, when you live aligned with your frequency, when you keep choosing love over fear, presence over distraction, you are already moving with the current of life. And when the moment ripens, when the alignment is complete, everything you've been waiting for flows naturally into being. You may not realize it, but sometimes the delay is protection. The door does not open because the room is not ready yet, or because you are not ready yet. To receive too soon is to be overwhelmed. To wait is to be strengthened. The fruit that ripens before its time may look good, but it lacks sweetness. When you trust timing, you discover that what arrives is not only right, it is perfect. Sacred timing is not passive. It does not mean sitting back and doing nothing. It means showing up each day as if the harvest were already here, living in the vibration of what you seek, even before it arrives. It means tending the soil of your heart with patience, gratitude, and presence, knowing that every moment is part of the unfolding. So, when you feel restless, remember this: the universe is never late. It is never careless. Every step, every pause, every detour has its place in the larger song of your becoming. You may not hear the melody yet, but one day you will, and you'll realize that even the rests, the silent spaces, were part of the music. Sacred timing is love disguised as patience. It teaches us to slow down, to breathe, to trust the invisible work beneath the surface. It shows us that life is not measured by speed but by depth. And in that depth, in that waiting, your roots grow strong enough to hold the weight of the light that is coming. So let go of the stopwatch. Lay down the need to hurry. Trust that your awakening is arriving at the exact pace it needs to. And when the moment comes, it will feel as natural as dawn breaking after the night. Not forced, not premature, but inevitable. 12. The simple truth of the present moment. The past is no longer alive. It lingers only as memory fragments carried in the mind, echoes of what has already dissolved. The future, too, is not yet real. It exists as imagination, a projection, a story the mind writes on a page that has not been printed. Between these two illusions lies the only place that is real. This breath, this heartbeat, this moment. It sounds so simple, almost too simple to believe. Yet this is the doorway that so many of us overlook. We chase healing in the shadows of yesterday. We chase joy in the promises of tomorrow. And all the while, life itself waits patiently here, in the now, whispering, "I am enough. You are enough. Stay with me." To live in the present is not a mystical trick. It is the most ordinary thing in the world. And precisely because it is ordinary thing, the ego resists it. The ego loves complexity. It loves to analyze the past, to predict the future, to keep itself busy in endless loops of thought. But presence asks for something quieter, more radical: to stop running, to sit down inside your own life and actually feel it. Have you noticed how the simplest acts become sacred when you are present? Drinking a glass of water and really tasting it, walking outside and noticing the way the air brushes your skin, listening to someone speak, not preparing your reply, but truly hearing them. These are not grand spiritual practices. They are the essence of living. Presence transforms them into miracles. I remember times in my own journey when my mind was trapped between regret and anticipation. I would replay old mistakes until they became heavy stones in my chest. Or I would obsess about the future, imagining endless scenarios that rarely came true. In both cases, I was absent from the only place I could actually live. I was everywhere, but here, and here is the only place life has ever been. The truth is, the present moment does not need to be improved to be miraculous. You do not need fireworks or extraordinary events. You need only the courage to arrive, to breathe, to notice, to allow yourself to exist without trying to escape. Presence is not about controlling the moment. It is about surrendering into it. Science even affirms this wisdom. Studies show that the mind spends nearly half of its time wandering, lost in past or future. And yet, happiness arises most naturally when we are rooted in now. Your nervous system relaxes. Your body softens. Your heart opens. Life feels less like a battle and more like a rhythm you are part of. And here's the gift. The more you practice presence, the more you discover that the now is never empty. It contains layers, textures, depths. Beneath the surface noise of thought, there is stillness. Beneath the stillness, there is spaciousness. And in that spaciousness, there is love and awareness that does not judge, does not demand, but simply embraces what is. This simple truth has been spoken by sages across ages, yet it often sounds too plain to be profound. The mind wants complex maps, secret teachings, elaborate rituals, but presence whispers, stop searching, stop waiting. You are already standing in the holy ground. Imagine holding a snowflake in your hand. If you clutch it, it melts. If you plan to save it for later, it disappears. But if you simply gaze at it, here and now, its beauty is undeniable. Life is the same. It cannot be stored in memory or hoarded for the future. It can only be lived. And here is the paradox: when you live fully in the present, the past begins to heal on its own, and the future takes care of itself. Regrets lose their grip because you are no longer feeding them with attention. Anxiety fades because you are no longer living in a story that hasn't happened. By being here, You untangle the knots of both directions. So, what does it mean to embrace the present? It means pausing in the middle of ordinary life and realizing that this breath is sacred. This sip of tea, this bird outside your window, this conversation you are having, it is enough. Not because it is spectacular, but because it is real, and reality is always more nourishing than illusion. So let the past rest, let the future wait, come back to now, again and again, as gently as you would return a child to their bed. No judgment, no force, only love, because the simple truth of the present moment is this: life is not happening yesterday, and it is not waiting for you tomorrow. It is breathing with you, right here, right now, and when you choose to meet it fully, you discover that presence itself is the miracle you have been searching for all along. The invitation of this moment. The journey of awakening is not about climbing to some distant mountain peak, nor is it about becoming someone greater or more perfect than you already are. It is about returning again and again to this simple moment, to the heartbeat echoing in your chest, to the breath rising and falling like waves upon the shore, to the quiet aliveness that has always been here, waiting patiently for your attention. You do not need to postpone your awakening until tomorrow. You do not need to wait until you are wiser, stronger, or more prepared. Life is not asking you to arrive at some future version of yourself before you are worthy. Life is asking you to be here now, with what you have, with who you are, with the enoughness that already flows in your veins. Every choice you make today is a seed planted in the soil of your future. Each thought, each action, each whisper of courage is a vote for the world you wish to live in. You may think these small moments do not matter, but they do. When you choose love instead of suspicion, presence instead of distraction, patience instead of restlessness, and you shift not only your own story, but the frequency of the world itself. Do not underestimate the power of your presence. When one candle is lit, the darkness of a room recedes. When one heart beats in alignment with truth, the rhythm ripples outward, reminding others of their own light. Your awakening is not a solitary achievement. It is a gift to the whole. And yes, fear will still visit you. Doubt will still knock on the door. But courage is not the absence of these guests. It is the decision to keep walking even when they accompany you. It is the soft voice that says, "I choose to move forward anyway." Awakening is not found in grand gestures or rare moments of enlightenment. It is lived in the ordinary, the way you greet a stranger, the way you speak to yourself in the mirror, the way you pause to feel the warmth of sunlight on your skin. These small acts of awareness are the true milestones. They remind you that you are already home, already whole, already connected to the vastness of life. So here is the invitation. Do not wait. Do not linger at the threshold, imagining a better time to begin. There is no better time than this one, this breath, this moment, right here. Choose courage instead of fear. Choose presence instead of delay. Choose love instead of doubt. And as you do, notice how not only your life changes, but the lives around you begin to shift. Notice how the collective rises when even one of us chooses to live awake. You are not here by accident. You were guided to this very moment, to these words, to this reminder, because a deeper part of you is ready to release the weight of old stories, ready to trust the rhythm of the now, ready to step into the freedom that was always waiting for you. So let your heart soften, let your breath deepen, let yourself say yes to the life that is here. Now, in all its imperfect, sacred beauty, because the truth is simple, yet profound. You are already enough. You are already home. And the path of awakening has never been anywhere else but here. This moment is the invitation.